We're going over today the 7 habits of highly effective people. We do introductions, so you say your name, you say what you're selling, and then we do outros, so you say your name and hit your pitch. Any questions on how this is going to work?
No.
Cool. Awesome. I think for the most part, we'll try to focus on a habit. If there's one that you like, or if you just want to talk about Steven Covey in general, however you want to discuss the book or the idea of the book. And then we'll just go in order of appearance. So I'll go first, and then Mom's going to go next, and then Jeremy, Larry, Deb. All good? Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So my name is Mickey Gaminal. I am with Gaminal Tutors, and I am launching the ASVAB Domination Program. If you want to get into the United States military with the highest ASVAB score possible so that you can pick a job that you will be happy you picked for the next 6 years while you're working it, you want to come work with me, I'll get you there.
Paula Williams with ABCI, and we are launching with the help of Mickey Gaminal and John Chaval, the Aviation Sales Skills Challenge, which is a 30-day challenge we're actually looking for 30 pilots or techs who need to learn sales skills in the aviation industry. So we are just launching that in July, and it's kind of modeled after Mickey's ASVAB challenge, which has been doing fantastically. So great.
Yeah.
Jeremy Cox. I appraise aircraft. I pretty much appraise any kind of airplane that you need to get a value on. Rotary, fixed, spacecraft, whatever.
Spacecraft?
Absolutely.
So Larry Heimbach, I am launching Business Aircraft Records, which is a nonprofit company. That's where I'm working with Paula. Although Paula and I originally met with trying to do digital logbooks, which I still do. And that is a result of 40 years of doing aircraft records review. A lot of it probably along the lines of what Jeremy needs to have done every time he appraises an airplane. Being sick and tired of the horrific condition of records, I decided I'd finally try to influence the influencers in our industry and do this nonprofit. So that's what I'm launching with Paula now.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Debbie Murphy. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Digital Strategy for Jet Brokers. We buy and sell jets and turboprops. That's pretty much it.
Good deal. Cool. I have a gavel. I talked about it last time. So if you guys start acting up, man, it's pretty serious. But so as we go through, like I said, we're trying to keep it under an hour. So if anybody's going super over, like we're trying to, give your spiel in like 10 minutes about what you think of the book or whatever. As soon as you start passing 10 minutes, I'll just kind of show it. And like, I guess if we hit 20, I'll start slamming on my computer or something like that. But I don't think it's going to get to that. So yeah, I'll go first. I'll talk about the 7 habits. Last book we did that's similar was The Speed of Trust. And that was done by Steven Covey's son. And these are kind of in the same vein. So the 7 habits of highly effective people, I'm just going to tackle one habit for my segment. And that habit is be proactive. That's habit number 1. So it seems fitting since this is the first part to start with habit number 1. So be proactive. This is really what separates people who do from everybody else, right? If you don't do something, nothing will ever get done. I really like the way that he breaks it down in the book, as far as, this is the kind of the fundamental step towards going for what you want to get. I think it's really easy to lock into your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is typically where that's always where you're going to feel safest. And being proactive is really what takes you from that. You have to be bad at something before you can get good at it. And being bad at something is not in our comfort zone. So being proactive and being they call it the zone of proximal development. So the area in which you don't know exactly what you're doing, but you might learn something. That is really what proactivity means to me. And that is so hard because that's the daily decision, right? Every single day we have these distractions that are warm blankets, man. Like we can sit and scroll Facebook and Instagram all day long or watch Netflix all day long. And it's designed to keep us captive and in that comfort zone. So breaking free from those chains of mediocrity and, just sedentary lifestyles is very difficult. It's tough to go out there and try something new, whether it's something new ideologically, physically, or anything. That is why this habit is so important to me.
I remember a conversation we had about a week ago when you were like, I could go for a 4-mile run in Las Vegas, or I could sit here in the air conditioning and eat cookies. And my lizard brain wants to sit here in the air conditioning and eat cookies. Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's 100% true. And every single morning, it's usually, even with like the military discipline and everything like that, it's, there's still that temptation to just lie around and chill out, rather than going out and getting after it. So, yeah. Anybody else have proactive thoughts or anything like that?
I use journaling for that to help. Well, I'm a creative person, so when I went to undergrad, I was in art school, and we had to do journals. And that was because we had to learn new creative things. And to be creative, you have to continually learn. So that's a good habit to keep.
Nice. I like that. I like the idea that creativity goes hand in hand with proactivity.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, because just like I was saying with when you're outside of your comfort zone and that's the only time something is outside of the box, right? They go hand in hand. I never really considered because I don't consider myself a creative person, so I never considered creativity.
Creating is doing. You have to do something to be creative. It doesn't just happen. It's not magic. Yeah.
That's great. Cool.
Very good. I write articles and do some things from time to time, and I find that creating is a work in process that takes a lot of energy and a lot of time to think things through and edit and do everything else to finally get your creative ideas where you can, be happy to share them with other people.
That's true. It requires a lot of effort.
Right. And Larry and Debbie, both, you guys are perfectionists. So I would imagine there's probably a little bit of some of the people that I know that struggle to get things done. It's because they are afraid of releasing it into the world because it is not finished yet and it never will be finished in their mind.
Right.
And if you're Cecil B. DeMille, you never finish a movie, you just abandon it.
No, the painter Turner was still repainting his paintings when they were hanging in the British Museum.
Oh my goodness.
He'd go in and redo them. Decades later. So
that's
I think that's unusual
that's
with creative people.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. Anything else on be proactive? I think the older we get, the harder it is to not do what we're good at, and to actually try to do something that we're not good at, because we kind of get into the groove of, I'm good at this. I really am great at marketing. I really stink at sales. So I try to stay away from sales and do twice as much marketing to make up for the not doing sales.
The no sales.
Right. And it doesn't work that way. I would be, growing the business so much faster if I would actually do the sales part. So I have to throw myself that direction sometimes and make that work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been having my own sales struggles where it's a nightmare to talk to people and tell them, hey, you got to work with me. Like wake up. This is what you need, man. And it's something that I believe in, but it's still just impossible to take a complete stranger and convince them that this is something worthwhile without feeling insincere or sounding insincere.
But it's not impossible. You've done it, right?
Yeah, I've got a couple success stories, but it's a long ways from where it needs to be.
Right.
Jeremy could probably help you with that. Doing sales.
That's true. I'll have to schedule a sales call. See,
Yeah.
I'll act like I need a UFO
tutor.
appraised.
I need my UFO appraised.
My problem with sales really is the fact that I often oversell, and I don't mean that in as much as, you know, I slap on too much salesmanship and overpromise, underdeliver. I don't mean that, but I'll get on the telephone, I'll call some people. I try and do that at least once a week and end up getting loaded up with business. So you got to be careful with how much you want business and how you sell, because sometimes you sell yourself into a big problem. And I never forget that my greatest inspiration, believe it or not, was a guy called Joe Girard. I don't know if he's even still alive, but he was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most successful car salesman on the planet. And wow. He did a series of cassette tapes, which I subscribed to. This is back in the in like 1991, when I started selling aircraft maintenance, Saberliner Chapter 5 corrosion inspections, in fact. And I thought, well, I've sold, but maybe I need to get some instructions. So I subscribed to Joe Girard's tapes. And, you know, he's got the power of 300, for instance, where basically every one of us touches 300 other people in our lives. So when you speak to one person, you're actually speaking to 300 people. And all this rubbish, but basically, you know, his little nuances and sayings were like the escalator to success is broken. You have to get there one step at a time. That kind of stuff. But, right. You know, it's good, solid stuff. The guy was great. And I guess selling in itself is a habit.
It is.
So, yeah, I there's nothing much else to say. Thank you, Debbie, but you got to watch out, because selling can be really successful.
That's right. Great. I like that. That kind of ties it back to proactivity. When you go out and get the tapes, when you already sold, you didn't have to, but you went out, you picked those up and you learned. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Great. All right, cool. So I'm over time, so I'm gonna gavel myself.
Gavel yourself?
Yeah.
Cool.
So, go ahead, Mom. Take it away.
I'm gonna skip ahead to habit number 5. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. This is the hardest one for me because I get so excited about things that I tend to jump all over people and say, you have to do this, and this is what's going on right now. And getting on office hours with people, I feel like my job is to provide the most value I can in that hour. So I feel like I have to pour on them whatever goodness I can. You know, here's what you should be doing from my perspective. And I need to, and I'm getting better at this, listen first and find out what's going on with them, because if they just had something change and all of a sudden they need to raise cash, and I'm sitting here talking about a long-term strategy and I don't know, what's just happened in their life, then I am giving them bad advice. So I need to seek first to understand. And I think this would solve 100% of the world's problems if people would learn to do this, especially right now, because everybody's got their mindset and they're so defensive about everything that's going on, and they're right and everybody else is wrong. And they're so compelled to get their message across, and nobody is listening to each other. So, if I can do my part in that, and that is to give the other person the first 10 minutes and give them my full attention for that first 10 minutes and not be thinking about how can I apply what I know to what they're saying, just actually become fully engaged and fully listen to that other person for, at least 10 minutes out of the hour that we spend together in that formal setting or in informal settings, whatever it is that I am not going to gain anything by talking. I gain something by listening. So that's my favorite habit and the one that I struggle with the most. And it's probably that way for a reason, right?
Paula, that literally what you just described is the absolute founding principle of sales, any kind of sales, because you've got to listen and not talk. And it's psychological. Not that we're trying to be psychologists here, but the reality is you sit down with somebody and you give them undivided, devoted attention and listen, and maybe throw out the occasional question or really, that kind of thing. By the time you're done, that other person truly believes they've had the most fascinating conversation of their lives, but they did all the talking. Because everyone loves to talk about themselves. So it's psychology 101. And it's the first rule that you can never break in sales. So it's interesting. So I just thought I'd have to comment that. I'm sorry.
Right? Oh, no, that's great. And I have to mention, when we went to St. Louis and we had lunch with you and Debbie, and you introduced us to every single person at the Spirit of St. Louis Airport, and they all knew you and they all liked you and they all had stories for you. And, it was just the neatest interaction that I have ever seen in my life. It was just walking around the Spirit of St. Louis Airport with you, or at least the coolest sales education I've gotten in an hour or less was that particular walk. That was kind of cool. That was amazing. So I want to be you when I grow up in sales skills. That's cool.
Well, thank you. I'm blushing.
I can tell.
I picked the same principle, so I'm going to wait till it's my turn to talk about it.
Oh, I'm sure you'll have a different way you'll have a different angle on it, though. So.
Yeah, I do. It is my favorite one of them.
So I guess it's my turn, and yet again, Jeremy lets down the home team because I've never read the book.
Wow.
I don't know anything about the book, but I can tell you that we've had some thunderstorms 3 nights running, and last night I got a fly up my bottom and decided to lay in bed with headphones on, and I went through my Shazam list all the way back to 2015 and added them through Apple Music to my moody playlist. So I was up till 1:35 this morning. We have an atomic clock that projects above the bed, and finally I thought, I probably need to turn in. And I looked up, and it's like, holy crap!
Holy crap!
So I'm kind of tired, and behind me is the Rila monastery. It was founded in the 10th century. It's in Bulgaria. I visited it in 2016, so I just wanted to explain that. I do have a habit of using Zoom backgrounds. I love them. I think they're fun. They're addicting. But anyway, moving into habits. So, you talk about 7 habits. I probably got 50 bad habits and very few good habits. But I can tell you, and it continues on from what Mickey was saying, and the truth is, I think the most important habit you can have, other than taking care of yourself, which looking at me, I don't do a very good job of that, but whatever. But the fact is, the most important thing you can do is take care of your brain and to always learn. Never, ever stop learning. And you can do that through many different ways. I probably get through 2 Audible books a week. I usually read 3 books at the same time. I mean, I'll read 3 chapters of a book, put it down, and then another time I pick up the book, which may be 2 days later, I'll read another book, and it may take me a month to get through 3 books, but it's just, you've always got to have brain food, and the brain food also translates into a much better life. Not only because you have a healthy outlook on life, but it enables you to talk to anybody on the planet as long as they speak English. I'm terrible with French. I took trombone lessons at school to get out of French lessons, and I can't really speak French, and I can't play the trombone. So, so it's got to be in English. But if you're talking to people that speak in English, you can pretty much talk to anybody if you keep filling your brain with information. So that's my habit. I make the habit of continually, perpetually learning.
Right. I think there's one that falls in line with this one. The one that's closest anyway to me is the sharpen the saw, and that's 7. So that's kind of the wrap up habit where it says just don't stop, which I think is pretty much what you're saying, which is great.
Lifelong learning.
Right. Yeah. That comes from the story. Was it Abraham Lincoln? It's been so long since I've read the book, but where if he had an hour to chop down a tree, he would spend the first half hour, the first 30 minutes sharpening the saw. And so people need to spend that time taking care of themselves and taking care of their brains. Like Jeremy said, you have to continually feed your brain good stuff because the world is going to feed it a lot of crap. So you need to defend yourself by choosing some of that and sharpening your saw, sharpening your own saw.
I think you need to keep your skill set up too. Like, I do graphics, so I have to continually learn what's going on with that. The programs change. I have to improve my skills. So there's always something to learn.
Right.
To continue to be good at it.
Mm-hmm. Now I got to jump back in here and say that one really bad habit that I got into over the last 18 months, and I'm basically the way I'm removing that habit is I've deleted the app off my phone, and that's Facebook. Because Facebook is just outrageous how it sucks you in. It's like a vampire. And it tries to suck the life out of you, and especially with this age of statue hate and other hatred, I'm done. So it's the only way I can access Facebook, which I do from time to time, but I'll do it maybe 3 times a week instead of 3 times a minute. How it used to be. The only way I access it is on my computer or on my phone through the browser. I refuse to use the app now because it's just it's not healthy. It's not good for my brain. I can tell you that.
It's also good not to have the notifications contact you.
Right.
I don't want to know what's going on in any social media apps when I'm not looking at them.
Right.
Ever.
Well, Jeremy, I feel bad because I dragged you into Facebook kicking and screaming like 2 years ago, didn't I?
Yeah, but Paula, it's just a phase of learning, right?
Right.
And I don't decry my experience with Facebook, and I'll still log in from time to time, but honestly, I don't think it's healthy.
Yeah.
For me, other people, right. Absolutely. But and you talk to younger people, they talk about apps I've never even heard of. I mean,
they use all sorts of things.
Yeah, and Facebook really is for fogies. It's
for old people.
Yeah, exactly. But with that in mind, you'd think it would be at a higher level and a lot more constructive than it is. And it's just pure poison. It's like old people are mean.
Right?
It's really toxic. It's like surprisingly toxic.
It's hard.
I don't get that because I don't interact in the wild in Facebook at all.
Yeah.
I'm in groups and I go to pages that I do exactly what I want to do, and I don't look at the rest of it deliberately.
Yeah, and you get out. Right.
And I don't. That's how I use it. I don't let it use me.
Right.
I gotta relate this back to the Dan Kennedy book, the No BS Marketing to the Affluent. He talks about how Facebook's going to take the same course as cigarettes. Government's going to intervene because it's just so toxic.
Because it won't do it for itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just think that should, these books do have some crossover. So I had to sneak it as moderator. I wouldn't be doing my duty if I didn't say, wait, this we talked to, it was covered at some point. So I just had to throw that out there.
I think one of the issues with Facebook is actually everywhere on the internet and the TV today. It's just there's so much information, and there's so many people that have the different viewpoints of it, and you don't know who to believe. And it's like too much information coming at us. So if you spend too much time on any of those social networks, Facebook included, you're just going to get barrage of information to the point where you're saturated.
Right. I had a medieval history teacher in high school that talked about when the printing press came out, there was this huge outcry that now we don't know what to believe because anybody can print things. And, we're going through that same thing where we're just going to have to start blocking people and start moderating our own friend list because, Facebook is nothing but a container, right? All it is just like a telephone with multiple lines coming in and one line going out. And if you have people on your party line that are poisonous, they're constantly feeding you poison. So I have blocked a ton of people because they get nuts. It's like they are totally different people on Facebook than they are in real life. So that's
we have to curate you have to curate your feed.
Right.
You don't allow anything to come in.
So get better friends,
That's what blocking and unfollow and unfriend is for.
Right. Exactly. There's always plenty of people out there that are decent and, will share their cat videos and their grandchildren and their gardens, which, and their airplanes. That's what we're here for, right?
It's a good place. Actually, Instagram's a great place to share airplanes.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Cool. Well, let's take it back to Jeremy's point, the not sharpening the saw, but the brain food constantly learned. So that's a great point. And I'm happy we all are fairly in a consensus as far as, social media platforms and that. But we'll move on to Larry at this point.
Okay. Well, Paula stole my thunder here with the habit.
No.
I actually read
you don't like it.
Covey's book back in the late 90s for the first time. So I have to admit, this one I only perused, although I'm sure there's a lot of changes and additions. But and I did get this and Never Split the Difference almost on top of each other. So I decided to peruse this one and read that other one. But in looking at this one, I did realize, of the habits that he says, a lot of them are useful, and I think I apply. A lot of them I slip back and I don't do it for a while, and then I'll get back in the groove. Not really focused on the habit necessarily from the book, but just something that I do normally. But boy, habit number 5 is the one I struggle with too, and that's seeking first to understand. And that is a big part of sales. I realize it. So I am not a salesman by any means. I'm a engineer and somewhat introverted, and I personally don't like sales or salesmen that much, but they are a very essential part of life. And whether you're in sales or not in sales, I think learning what the other person has to say and their thoughts and feelings is really important before you begin expressing your thoughts and feelings so that you reach an understanding.
Absolutely. And Larry, I'm just happy you're here because I know video is not a lot of people's first love, but I think it's becoming more important, as we're going forward and things like that to be on video and to be able to have a conversation on video. This is a skill where we have to learn to listen to each other and not step on each other. And, there's a whole bunch of jokes about how Zoom is notoriously bad for that, because it's really hard to have a group conversation and have it make sense. But this group is so fantastic for that. I've been in groups that are terrible, and you guys just make me happy. You make me smile. So.
Nice. I like that it's all listen first and then or seek first to be understood. But I'm so it's funny that we always relate it back to sales, like straight away, right? Is there another vein of
There is. I'm going to do the same topic, so I'm saving it.
Okay, cool.
There is another vein, though, in terms of, and I think Larry kind of hit on it, and that is finding your market, and Larry's come at this from two different angles, from, a company and then a nonprofit, where you're looking at marketing data and coming to different conclusions and things like that. So part of it is not just, people think that marketing is just broadcasting. Did I just skip, or am I?
No, it was me. I was frozen.
Okay, cool. Am I a skipping record? Okay. There's a lot of people think that marketing is just broadcasting, from back in the CBS, NBC, ABC, Super Bowl commercial days, in the 80s and 90s, when everybody was watching and listening to the same thing. Things are so fractionated these days that you have to do a lot of data analysis in order to position your message right. It's not just broadcasting. It is finding out who you're talking to and positioning your message to them. And hopefully, Debbie, this isn't the other angle you were going to take.
It's not.
Okay, good.
It's good. It's a good point.
I didn't. Yeah, both of your angles. So, I think listening is also about that data analysis and figuring out, what, all of my customers are country music fans. I just found that out by looking, well, not all of them, but an awful lot of them are country music fans. I had no idea until I started looking into the Facebook data of people who have some things in common that are demographically appropriate for a thing that I'm going for right now. And I'm like, I never would have put that together. They're country music fans. Okay, so that tells me that maybe I need to change some of my word choice, and that maybe tells me that I need to be speak a little bit differently than I would otherwise, So learning more about your audience is the same thing as listening, right?
Market research, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Has anyone read any of the Splitting the Difference yet?
I haven't.
He does talk about that. I mean, that's a real skill as a negotiator, is to understand, the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions behind, the words that the person you're negotiating with are saying. It's really important. So that's a big part of, I think, everyday interaction with people, whether it's sales or negotiation or whatever. It's good to know where a person's coming from in order to know how best to communicate with them, I think. And something like I said, I know I struggle with it all the time. I always want to get what I want to say out and don't always listen to what the other person has to say first.
It's almost like a meditative practice to listen this way.
I was just going to jump in before Larry mentioned the other book. We're all sales centric in this group. And the reality is, it's also a matter of mental health and sanity. And as important as it is to listen to other people, especially somebody one-on-one you're interacting with, it's equally as important, if not more important, to actually listen to yourself. You just sit there, and as my mum in England says, just be. And you have to take time where you just be, you sit quietly, and you start listening to the voice in your head. And I'm not talking about voices. I don't have, but it is part of the sanity or maintaining your sanity in listening to yourself and having that conversation in your head. Because to me, I've never been able to journal. I've always wanted to be a journaler, Deb, and I've probably got 6 or 7 journals that may have a couple of months each in them. And it's interesting to go back and read it, but I'm just not a journaler. But I journal in my head for sure, because I'll have those conversations from time to time, and it kind of puts everything back into the rightful places.
Your blogs are journals. They're just online.
Yeah, but
that's an aviation. It's similar practice.
True. I just wanted to say that. That's all. You've got to have a good mental or brain defrag.
Yeah.
I think first to listen to yourself as well. Great.
That is absolutely true. And especially, I think, there's limits on who you should listen to. And, Mickey and I were talking about this earlier. When he was younger, I used to worry about who he was listening to, music and this and that and the other things. And because it becomes pollution in your head, right? But now, I'm not worried. He can listen to anything he wants to, and I know he will be able to entertain ideas and put them in perspective and manage that in his head in the right way, so he can listen to anybody now. But I have to sometimes manage who I'm listening to, because I find myself becoming more like the people I hang out with the most. And everybody has a relative or something like that sometimes negative and things like that. And so if you listen too much, you become, especially if you're kind of an empathetic person, you start to feel the way that they feel, and that's not cool. So you have to protect yourself and police your listening habits, I guess, is a good way of putting that.
Curate.
There you go.
Cool. Well, I'm personally I'm interested to know what Deb's take is, because if there's a different vein, I can't imagine that we haven't killed this horse dead. But I think you got it. You sound like you have something else.
Well, I think I take it from the collaboration point of view. To collaborate with people, you all need to be able to listen empathetically and hear each other and come up with an idea. And that's my favorite, how I take this empathetic listening part. It's a practice that if you collaborate with people effectively, you all have to do it at once. So it's a team practice. And it works really well. If we are learning it in doing our Zoom meetings. We practice it. We have to listen to each other and have a comment thoughtfully. We can't just be thinking of the next thing to say, or it doesn't really work. So that's how the point of view I look at it from. It's a little different than sales.
No, I like it. It's almost meta, right? Like it's a little bit far out. So that's great.
And I have to do that with the people I work with, because I do marketing. So I have to understand what they're doing and hear them, and and then me just know what I can do for them for anything to get done.
Right. Well, the art that you make, Debbie, this is a skill that I really, really admire. You take data from JetNet or wherever you're getting it from, and from your sales guys, and from a lot of different sources, and you make it a visual piece of art, literally, that reflects your brand, and it looks good, and it conveys one idea at a time, and all of that is so hard to do. You make it look
appropriately sized for the media that I share it into.
Exactly.
I have to think about that. All of those are
right. So express all of this data in this big of a square. That's fantastic.
It's fun.
No, I really admire what you do, because that is a gift, and I can see how that comes from being able to truly understand the data in order to communicate it visually. Not everybody can do that. I can't do that.
I guess it's a skill I've practiced, so I've learned it over time.
Yeah. Right. But I can see how the listening really falls into that in a really cool way.
And I'm an introvert, so it's easier to practice listening before I speak. So it suits my personality better.
There you go. No, that's fantastic.
Amen.
That is cool.
So I'm happy we got these introverts online. Geez, video, audio, you guys are all synced up, That's great.
I actually like this format talk. It's easier for me.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was talking to a Peace Corps buddy of mine who always wanted to be a teacher. And he was telling me that some of his students who used to act up in class are doing so much better with the online stuff, because they don't have to play up. They don't have to show that they're class clowns, or, they don't have to keep up social appearances. And so he's shocked that the kids who used to do well, who were a little bit shy, some of them started doing worse. And the ones who were, outspoken and ridiculous in class started doing better with this big change. So it's just another reminder that, we don't know what we're doing as humans. We have these expectations for what people will do, and it's never right.
Right. Jeremy brought up a point earlier, about language, and I know, Mickey, you've had some experience with this. Sometimes you go into a situation where you don't know the language, or you have gone into a situation where you don't know the language, and you have managed that by listening. So that comes back to that same habit.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important. Listening isn't just listening to the words, right? Otherwise, texting would be the perfect form of communication. And we all know that texting is like the worst form of communication, right? You don't know what anybody's feeling or thinking or saying, really. Like you see this string of text and it really gives you zero information. And that's why I was able to kind of get by while I was in the Peace Corps, while I was in Morocco. I had the language skills of a 5-year-old, and I'm having meetings with, the director of the youth center. And, the only way that I don't sit there looking like a complete idiot, which is what happened the majority of the time, but anytime that I seemed remotely intelligent, like I had more than one brain cell, was when I was listening. It was never when I was talking. It was when I was acknowledging what they were saying. Always, always, always. So
that's an interesting way to learn that, like practicing, not actually understanding.
Yeah, it had a lasting effect, definitely.
Staying with communication, I've got to admit this. For years, I battled the problem with email. An email, absolutely spectacular, and obviously we went. In my lifetime, I've gone from the telex to the fax machine to email, and it just. I had the problem with email that I would come across like I was shouting, or I was insulting, or I was rude, or being obnoxious. And that wasn't my intent whatsoever, but I guess my written or typing voice is mean. And I've got to hand it to text, because text, since you're so limited, because, who the heck wants to sit there and use their thumbs to type out this long message? So it toned my voice down, my electronic voice. And personally, I prefer text to email because it seems to be a direct communication that's concise, and it doesn't, for me anyway, it doesn't imbue any kind of emotion transmitted to the reader, which from my case is a good thing. But this is, staying with communication, a habit which every one of us are losing. And it's a habit that I think it's crucial as a human being. And that's why business aviation exists, the face-to-face communication. But it's crucial. Very few of us have business jets. And it's expensive to take a flight to go see somebody face-to-face and do that 50 times a week. So the next best thing, other than video chat, which, is a game changer for everybody, but the habit that we've all got out of is picking up the telephone. And I will physically, in my head, say to myself, you know what? You're going to send an email, you're going to send a text, just pick up the phone and call them. Mm-hmm. And it's so much better, because you end up, every call usually ends up being, it's an exciting moment of interaction. You learn so much, you have fun, you laugh. I rarely, in fact, I'm not sure if I've ever laughed. Back when it was politically incorrect, which was the great days pre-Bill Clinton, everyone, I would go to Walden Books and buy dinner table jokes, because you'd always go out to client lunches and it was one-upmanship as to who could tell the fresh joke, and everyone was rolling up. But I got to tell you, apart from that, back in the old days when I used to get some bizarre things in email that would make me laugh, I don't think I've ever laughed when I've typed an email. So
good point.
I laugh a lot on the telephone. I love it. So it's a habit that we all need to get back into. So get back into making telephone calls. There you go.
That's
There
a
you
good
go.
sales thing. Sounds like a sales manager. Make your phone calls.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Jeremy. I mean, you can, on one phone call, you can accomplish what you can't accomplish sometimes in doing a half a dozen emails back and forth. But it's a much better form of communication. I agree.
You can
Exactly.
complete the conversation in a phone call. And an email is just partial, one part, one side
That's
of it,
true.
one piece, you know.
That is true. I know. I hate the phone just because, and I'm not sure if it's like a form of introversion or something like that, but, and I keep coming back to this story, but, sitting at the table with Jeremy in St. Louis, and he picks up the phone and calls 47 people and says, I've got somebody here from Salt Lake City that you need to meet, let's get together. And and I was thinking, if I were any kind of a salesperson, if I were going to the Spirit of St. Louis Airport, I would have already made those calls. But I'm not any kind of a salesperson because, picking up the phone is not something that occurred to me, but it was so effective when Jeremy did it. And it was just, this eye-opening thing to see that happen and go, wow, that's so powerful. I could do that. That's amazing,
You're in his home base though too, which was
Yep, that's
Aren't
true.
you
They
the
would
president of the St. Louis Business Aviation, whatever?
Greater St. Louis Business Aviation.
And you know everybody.
Right, and they'll take your call. They won't take my call.
He knows everybody.
Right. Exactly. Mickey, how do you think, I know I'm going to pick on you because you're from a different generation, but I know the notorious thing that you hear about demographics is that young people don't like making phone calls. Do you think there's truth to that, or there's reason for that?
I think that's accurate. I think young people are much more likely to screen their phone calls and not pick up if it's a number they don't recognize. But I also think there's something to be said for voicemail, right? A voicemail now has more gravity than it used to, right? Because now when you leave that voicemail, they're like, wow, this person's actually talking to me, right? Which is kind of crazy for the younger people. One thing in regards with the phone, when I was in basic training, it was all letters. And so the letters they would take 2 weeks to get there and 2 weeks to get back. And so I was able, and they really highly regulate how long you can be on the phone. So I would call my girlfriend for 5 minutes and I would knock out everything that I sent her over the last 3 weeks, in a course of 180 seconds. And it's you're right. The efficiency of the phone call is bar none compared to emails, texts, or letters. Yeah, absolutely.
I noticed the younger people like to text me and not talk on the phone.
Yep.
I have a 13-year-old niece who, you've got to text her. She doesn't want to talk on the phone at all. Or Instagram or some other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't get a hold of my cousin. He refuses to answer when I call, but he'll message me back all day. No problem.
Yeah. I don't know. However they want to do it, it's fine.
Yeah, you gotta
knowing your audience, right?
None of this is unique. None of this is. That's what's crazy. It's all about going back in time and looking at history. History repeats itself over and over. And growing up in the UK, I'm not sure. The Chinese probably invented it, but for some, whatever country you grow up in, you find out that the country you grew up in, they invented everything. That's what they teach you in school. But we had a very, very virulent and effective postal system long before I was born. And the Victorians probably perfected communication, written communication, and the text of Victorian times, the 1850s on, 1870s, 1880s, probably the absolute peak, was sending letters in the mail. And there were 4 posts. They call it posts. But there were 4 posts in the UK, anywhere in the country. And you could write somebody a letter at 8 o'clock in the morning, put it in the post box, and they'd have it by lunchtime. And they'd be responding to you. And in the mid-afternoon post, you'd get a response. And
wow,
literally. And so society kind of de-evolved from using the postal system, and then re-evolved with electronic communications. So the written word has been around for a long time, and rapid communication through the written word has been around for a long time. But it's just come full circle with texting and email. So it's not something new, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. That's interesting, because I bet that the culture was 1,000 times different when people were communicating 4 times a day with the written word, as opposed to like in the United States, where you'd write a letter in New York, the Pony Express would take 4 or 5 days to get to San Francisco. So the people in San Francisco are making their own decisions, and doing their own thing. And companies, I think, in the United States, and people in the United States tend to do their own thing a lot more readily, because they had to make their own decisions. And, we kind of evolved that way with the Wild West and all that other crazy stuff.
I think it was the distance. UK is pretty small. What is it, the size of the state of Missouri? Or is it smaller? It's not, maybe it's bigger than that. Maybe it's the size of 2 medium-sized states, but.
Right. But some poor pony can get from one side of England to the other.
It's much easier to get, or train. They had great train system. So you could put it on a train.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, I got breaking news for you all. I just got an email from Ed Boland. He says NBA base in Orlando is canceled.
Really?
Yep.
In October?
Yep.
The big one.
So the next time base happens will be Las Vegas, October 12, 13, 14 in 2021.
We'll be back in Vegas.
Wow. Vegas.
So when you come through.
And we'll see Mickey.
Yep. Yeah. Mickey's backyard.
Yeah, you guys can come by. We'll have a good
breakfast at Mickey's house.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna invoke. Are there any final words on the 7 habits? Anybody have any last minute things to say?
I would just say, habits are 1,000 times more powerful than any Herculean effort. So, that's one of the things I really liked about the book, is that if you can make something a habit, it doesn't matter if you do it perfectly every day. Doing things consistently is just 1,000 times better than any, and people always want to do some big marketing push, and that kind of thing. And I'm like, marketing habits are 1,000 times more powerful than any particular campaign or push. So
I like that. Slow and steady.
Yeah, slow and steady.
Good deal. All right, I'm gonna pitch out. So I'm Michael Gaminal. I'm doing the ASVAB Domination Program with Gaminal Tutors to help people get the jobs they want in the United States military. If that is you, you should probably talk to me, and we can see if we can get you that high-flying career.
Right. Absolutely. Paula Williams, Aviation Business Consultants International. We help aviation companies sell their products and services. And our most recent project is the Aviation Skills Challenge. And if you go to aviationsaleskills.com, you can read all about it. And if you are somebody or know somebody who is a pilot or a tech that really needs to learn sales skills for the next step in their evolution, send them to that address and we will take care of them.
Jet Values Jeremy here. I appraise airplanes. I like airplanes. I'm an airplane geek. Call me if you need to know the value of an airplane. Pick up the phone and call me.
Larry Heinbaugh is with Business Aircraft Records, and I'm all about improving aircraft logbooks and record keeping so that we finally get to the point where people like Jeremy and everyone can use these records and understand them instead of being this great mystery that we all in aviation have to deal with.
Hi, I'm Debbie Murphy. I'm the VP of Marketing and Digital Strategy for Jet Brokers. We buy and sell aircraft. You can see what we do at jetbrokers.com.
Great work, everybody. This was great. The next one's going to be 2 weeks from now, and it's Larry already mentioned it. Never split the difference.
Never split the difference. Yeah.
Actually, thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. That was fantastic.
Sad about base, though.
No kidding. That stinks.
Sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks. Yeah.
You know, that's
I kind of felt we were going in that direction because yesterday I saw, the day before yesterday, the Reno Air Races canceled. And then there was something else I saw over in, I think, the UK that's was in September. And I'm thinking, oh, we're nipping on the heels of base in October. And they've been putting out this survey. NBAA's been putting out the survey for the last 3 weeks, trying to get people engaged and giving their opinion on what they feel would make them comfortable in attending base. And here we are. Yep,
right.
I read to inform you that COVID-19 pandemic has forced the cancellation of 2020 NBA base. Sucks.
Yeah. You know, what's really interesting is that for the last few years, they've been kind of raising their prices. And a lot of the people that we talk with are like, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? And now this happens.
Now we'll know whether it's really worth it. It won't be happening.
No kidding. This might change the culture of aviation marketing. It's always been trade show centric, and I'm wondering if this is the last. This is an indication of a change of direction.
Well, I don't think you can really replace it permanently.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're doing, but
you cannot replace face-to-face.
No.
It's also like some of the things they're showing you. You can't. You'd have to fly there and see what they're showing you.
Well, yeah.
And manufacture like some of the things you can't just show on graphic or on video.
I always said when I was with you guys at Jet Brokers, I always said whenever I went to NBAA and came back, it blew my mind how I could see, literally have conversations and engagements with at least 50 people. And more than that, but more than just, hey, how you doing? Saw you last year kind of thing. I mean, sit down and have a real engaging conversation with somebody that that you're trying to do business with, or they're trying to do business with you. And the fact is, to be able to make those points of contact, it would take you a year and probably 5 times around the world in air miles to go see these people.
Right.
That's that possible. I mean, for the price of admission, return flight and hotel and a little bit of food maybe, we'll throw that in with the hotel. The fact is, you just can't get around and see people the way you do a base, and everyone feels that way. So it's a gathering point.